Good.
Yeah, so you folks may notice we have a little different setup here, and hopefully you'll be able to see what's going on with the meeting a little bit more, and the council will be able to do the same thing on this monitor up here. This is our maiden voyage with this new system, so if there are any glitches, your patience would be appreciated.
So please bear with me as I am adjusting to the microphone. But we will go ahead and begin for the Winthrop Town Council meeting for June 3rd at 6 p.m. The council members are all present with the exception of Councilor Caprera. She'll be joining us at 7 p.m. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen.
At this time, we will open it up for public comment. Is any other business? Okay. All right, we will begin with item 77. We will open the public hearing for TJ's Place liquor license application. It is a new application for 602. Do we have any representation from TJ's? Hello. And is this the location that you're opening? Is this the new one up at 202?
So if you folks would step up to the microphone here, please.
Thank you. Welcome. Great to see you here. Thank you for coming. So this is right up at 202 where Dr. Strux used to be? Yeah. Okay. Does the council have any questions?
Is this the same type of operation that you have down there? Basically the same thing? Okay. Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the liquor license for TJ's Place.
I'll second.
All in favor? All in favor. Well, thank you. We look forward to your opening.
That was easy.
All right. Thank you very much. Next is item 79, consideration of a transient seller permit application from Brick Oven Bakery. Do we have anyone here from Brick Oven Bakery?
I believe this is a first-time vendor in our community.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the transient seller's permit for Brick Oven Bakery LLC, Limited Liability Corporation.
Second.
All in favor? All are in favor? Moving on to item 80, consideration of transient seller permit application from Wicked Thai Food. Do we have any representation from Wicked Thai Food? Sounds good.
Samples.
Selling at Absalom Cider, maybe one of their food trucks.
I'll make a motion to approve the application for Wicked Thai Food as a transient seller.
Second.
All in favor? All are in favor? All right. We will begin, move on to item 81 and begin the public hearing for the mooring field ordinance. First reading, open at 6:05 p.m.
So we do have some representatives from our ad hoc mooring committee, a couple of members here in the room, and then we also have two of those folks online as well.
Hear me?
Mike McCutcheon, resident, member of ad hoc. We were charged with determining whether or not the town required mooring ordinance for the Falls Winthrop. There was a former mooring ordinance that was in place. It was met with controversy and back to table that ordinance and do a new mooring ordinance. Our charge was to determine whether or not the town needed a mooring ordinance or not. Not there, or if so, what would that look like? How we could do it. We, through the meetings, we determined that to govern moorings on with lakefront property owners, say landowners, but to develop a mooring field that in the case of the moorings at the south end, that were to prop up other public boat or public access. So we would have a set of rules so that public guidelines for said mooring, own body. So that's what we did, and we came up with an ordinance that did not property owners or right-of-ways.
Thank you,
Mike,
Mike.
I'm having a hard time hearing you.
So they're simply asking that we make sure we speak into the microphone.
Okay, so just to be clear, Mike, you received your charge last July, July 24th of last year, and it was to determine if you needed a mooring ordinance. And then if so, then what you would take from that the previous mooring ordinance, and moving forward, what amendments or changes would be proposed. You conducted a Survey Monkey to collect feedback from the community. From that feedback, you understood that that residents did not want a mooring ordinance per se, but that there did need to be regulation for mooring fields. And so we are now moving forward with a mooring field ordinance proposed.
I think it's also important to note that this would apply only to public, non-commercial mooring fields. So mooring fields that have direct public access and that are not commercial in nature.
All your members were in agreement of your committee members? Yes, the ordinance as written right now, this draft was voted through unanimously. Okay. To present to the council.
Thank you, Mike. Is there any public comment? Anybody that would like to come up to this stand and introduce yourself and give some feedback or input?
Hello, everybody. I am Carrie. I did read through the mooring ordinance, and I don't know who all the members are, but I think you did a great job on it. I did have some questions. So if I have just a moment, maybe I can get some questions answered. I did talk briefly with Anthony, so he knew I was going to be speaking today, but he didn't know all of my comments. So one thing that I did want to ask about is mooring field that is we're talking about on the lower end here in Maranacook. My understanding is that the moorings that are there right now are going to be grandfathered in. I'm just wondering, how do we know who those belong to? Or should I ask all my questions and then?
Yeah.
Moorings at the south end of Maranacook, know who most all of them are not. But those moorings legally, some of them are. So when that application process, and then all of the existing moorings will be
And it may be important to note that the owners of those moorings must adhere to all of the regulations within the ordinance, with the exception of the initial establishment of a public non-commercial mooring field. And that is that, as Mike said, since that field has long been established, the committee felt like it wasn't necessary to go through that process. If there were proposed mooring fields moving forward, then those applications would ultimately come to you to decide whether or not to create a mooring field.
Go ahead, Carrie.
So I understand that you as a committee know who these mooring people are? And that was determined because you just know because it's been an established? Okay. Okay. So my other question is, you're suggesting an annual mooring registration fee of $25 per watercraft. That's for the season. And I'm just wondering, because I know that we used to be able to rent dock slips, because we have a very small dock. We used to be able to rent dock slips for the season at $10 a day. And so that equals about $1,200 to $1,400 for the season. So I'm just curious how that's going to help the town if you're only paying $25 for the entire season. And now I have to argue with other committee members who do not have access to that mooring field. And they now have to pay $10 a day to rent a slip for a minimum of 10 days. I just feel like this is a good opportunity for us to make money for the town. And I guess I'm not sure how that amount came to be.
So just as a reminder to the council and to the audience, state law requires that we can't collect fees in excess of the cost of the service. And so I think it's fair to say we viewed that as being a fairly minimal process as far as the administration of that. And while, we're always looking to generate new revenue streams, in order to pay for services, we do have to be mindful not to charge any more than we normally would. And I think the $25 may have come partly from the fact that, that's how much we charge for a liquor license or some such.
We charge $250 for a liquor license.
Yes, but most of that goes to the state. It does.
To establish a new mooring. And then after that, every year, as long as you get your application on time, you only have $25 for the season. Okay. As somebody that works for the town, I'm going to say that I'm going to get a lot of pushback for that. That's to what you're looking at. You're looking at keeping your boat on the lake for an entire season. And we won't let any citizen or non-citizen rent any slip for more than 10 days at $10 a day. That's something that I would just like to be taking it into consideration, not only as just a citizen that would like to put their boat there, but also somebody who's going to have to be explaining these things to the public.
No, I just want, if I can answer some of that question with that as well. There's two things. If you're on the slips, you have direct access to your boat. You're not going out to the wading out in the water. You're also not buying tackle to buy the mooring and have the mooring. So that, I think that they established, and I'm just speaking to going to the meetings, they established the fee, which the mooring field in the South Cove was going to still pay the $250 initial fee. And then they'll be paying the $25 initial or annual registration fee, just like a liquor license. I think that's what Anthony just said. That's kind of what's
They're not paying.
Yeah.
the first time.
And I stand correct, I consulted with the clerk, so we do keep all of that $250 for that, but I must be confusing. It seems like at some point, didn't we just recently set a fee for a cannabis license that was it $250? I thought that was the initial fee, and then the annual payment was $50 or $200 or $25 or some such.
I think it was 25. 25, yeah, the re-upping it.
So my other question is it talks about a harbor master. How is that person going to be determined?
was trying to spare the town an expense. Harbor Master. We felt that the town could absorb that duty. It was said in the meetings by town manager that Mark was going to absorb that piece. We're talking about really monitoring 12 moorings at the end of south end of Moran. I don't think it's going to be.
So is Mark aware that he's taking on these responsibilities? Because as a code enforcement for this town, he's already got a full plate. And I understand it's only 12 votes at the end of the thing, but if this happens, chances are that more people are going to be wanting a mooring field so they have access to their boats seasonally and not have to rent a slip for 10 days at a time. This could potentially become something more.
Can I address that? So I don't think it's going to be onerous. And I base that based upon my experience as the town manager in Belgrade, and we had a mooring ordinance. And in the 2 years that we had a mooring ordinance and I was the town manager, our code enforcement officer dealt with 2 cases involving moorings, and each of those were resolved with a phone call in about 10 minutes. And so, you know, I think it's fair to say we're not going to have a plethora of public mooring fields simply because under the guidelines of this ordinance, there's limited places where you could do that. You've got to, for instance, have public access to the water. You've got to have a certain number of parking spots per mooring within a mile of the field. And so I don't anticipate that this is going to be an onerous responsibility whatsoever. And, you know, we managed to clear a lot of bandwidth for Mark by hiring an executive assistant that helps with some of his administrative stuff and a planner that has taken on all the responsibilities associated with the zoning board and the planning board. So, you know, I'm mindful not to overload any of our staff members, but I just feel comfortable that this is not going to be an onerous responsibility.
My other question is, are any of the council members grandfathered into this mooring?
I am.
And are you recusing yourself from this vote?
I am not.
We am not.
And we.
You don't think that's a conflict of interest?
I do not, because when we first went this route, it was actually suggested by Bruce Burns, if you were here at that meeting, that that this is a fair way to clear the entire
And it's been
Stigma.
fully disclosed. This has not been hidden from anybody. When we talked about this has been fully disclosed to the public and to the council that we both have been there and where we stand on the whole piece of it. And just to state, and I've always stated it, we do not have any animosity. We've always supported some type of ordinance in place to regulate.
Okay, I just want to be clear that I'm not against the mooring ordinance or having a mooring out there. I think it's an excellent idea, but I do also think that it should be, at least what you guys are planning on paying annually should be reconsidered.
It was up to the community.
Recommendation of increasing, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Thank you,
Did you-
Carrie.
And I have a question. The 250 is for someone or who,
Application fee.
application fee, but who is submitting this application and how does that get governed? Is it something that's split between all those that have moorings initially? Or how does that come about?
Yeah, that's exactly right, Aaron. So whoever is proposing the mooring field would be paying the fee. And so let's say that you have 10 people, then I assume that those 10 people would divide the $250 amongst themselves.
Do we have other members of the audience that would like to come up and speak for public comment?
Can I say something? Can I just remind the public that there was an ordinance put in place previous that was not completely transparent. And we were served violations down there for legally placed moorings.
in a state-owned body of water. We came to the town council with suggestions, pleaded with them to put something in place. We offered, Councilor Steele offered to be the harbor master at no charge to the town. We offered to set in place most of the rules that are in this ordinance currently, and we were pushed away several times. So we were just trying to make an ordinance that's fair for everybody, allowed public access to the lake. Nobody wants to be told they can't use Maranacook Lake in a town that's grown up and used. And again, it's a state-owned body of water. It's a perfect spot. House moorings, we've been in there problem-free until that previous mooring ordinance was passed, or under different reasons. Let's try and make it.
Can those of us on Zoom speak?
If they could-
Can we make comment if we're on Zoom?
Yes, please.
I'm just a little confused and it's possible maybe I missed some kind of announcement that went out because obviously when the mooring ordinance was, the original one was first put into place, it was pretty comprehensive. And at some point it was decided that there would not be a mooring ordinance. There would be just a mooring field ordinance. And I'm a little confused by how that occurred. I understand that there was some survey sent out and you're saying that as a result of that survey, people preferred no ordinance. I mean, my feeling is that, I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. So my feeling is that, as you research nearby jurisdictions, they all have mooring ordinances. And
Oh, she just fell off the call.
Who? State. And state who you are. Thank you. State.
Yes.
Yes, he does.
Meeting. I have been at. All have been at. Very little from the, we're now in the 11th hour. All of us have come to, and now all of a sudden there are issues. And find everything. Now to start all over again. Working to get, there are certain answers from the concept that I'm getting. And there hasn't, where have all of, all the way up, like years. Finally, all of this, on an ordinance that we've been working on forever, and we've all, now we're here again, going. Get to those. It's just getting.
apologize that my phone went out. I'll go on mute till someone else is not speaking.
Really feel like there is everybody back tonight. We're having stuff. So it's a big that they're not informing ordinance.
Now I can't hear.
Sandy, can you move closer to the mic?
So
talking. Doctor, all right. Is that better? I think it's important that as we rehash this, we have done this for years. And for tonight to be a whole new beginning of that, we need to stop and think of all the work that's been put into this and how much progress we've made. And it's time to put this to rest.
Point of order.
You know, I think that's all I have to say to that, but I think enough is enough.
Thank you, Sandy.
I think that the charge that we had laid down back in July for the mooring committee that was formed was that they would have a unanimous decision, which they've reached. As far as the town council, I thought that that would be a fair and equitable decision. I told the committee at that time that if they had a unanimous decision, and they were all in agreement that they would have my vote for it. And I intend to vote that way because I've been reassured through the videos that I've seen. I've stayed away from the open meetings, but I've watched them all very vigilantly. And I think that they've reached a fair and equitable decision. And I'm willing to abide by that. I feel that strongly about it. If my committee that was appointed feels the same way, I'm very comfortable with that. I understand the lack of public interest in it. And I don't think there's any last minute deals to throw roadblocks up. I mean, I don't see that coming.
All right, I want to just bring it back to Sherry on Zoom. Sherry?
Thank you so much. I'm sorry about that. I'm just confused about why can you hear me?
Yes, can you introduce yourself and where you're coming from?
Yes, I'm sorry. I am a property owner on shoreline on Cabascanti Lake.
Thank you.
And and like I said, I may have missed something. I know when the original mooring ordinance came out, there was a lot of pushback, caused a lot of commotion revolving around what was going on in Maranacook. And eventually the town council, rescinded it and said, we're going to put it to this committee. And even though a survey was put out, I'm not really clear on at what point they decided that the mooring ordinance would no longer exist and we would only have a mooring field ordinance. And as you research nearby towns, that isn't the norm. And I feel like besides Maranacook, there's other bodies of water. Cabascanti has made national news for its issues with invasive species and environmental issues. And I feel like this mooring field ordinance doesn't address anything there at all. It doesn't address the issues of how many moorings a camp can have if they only have 25 feet of footage, campground, a shoreline homeowner, somebody with a deeded right of way. It just basically got rid of all of those, and I'm not really clear on why. Besides that, I guess what I've heard is that the survey indicated that more people did not want an ordinance, and I'm not really sure why that was the deciding factor, as opposed to, environmental and other reasons that should dictate whether a mooring ordinance is needed.
Did you want?
Yeah, so if I can address that just briefly, I think the committee was just very committed to ensuring that it didn't do something that the community didn't want. And if memory serves me correctly, when we sent out the survey, which got good response, I don't recall exactly how many responses, but got good response. I believe it was 74% of people said they did not want regulation of moorings in front of private properties. And so that left the committee with deciding whether or not to regulate public moorings. And the majority of people who responded to the survey said they did want regulations of those sorts of moorings. So that's sort of how the committee came down to focus on a specific issue as opposed to trying to regulate moorings as a whole across all 11 of our lakes.
Okay, I appreciate your response. I guess it's just, of course, I know that, there were many people that did not see the survey, didn't respond to it, but also just kind of surprising that, people in general, human nature, people are going to respond to a survey in terms of what benefits them personally. That's not true of everyone, of course, but it is true of many people. So It's just disappointing that the town of Winthrop sort of just deferred to what people said they wanted and didn't want, as opposed to what might be best for the town as a whole, and more importantly, for the longevity of some of these bodies of water. I mean, I feel like it was, oh, we don't want to have another big, scrum like we did with the Maranacook battle. So let's just get rid of all this. And it feels a little bit like we were all duped by the town council, because that wasn't what we expected when we were told it was going to get passed to a mooring committee.
You guys hear me? I'm Sandy Steele, and I want to remind everyone why we are here in the first place. It had to do with our town council and our former town manager going behind our backs, and it is all in their own handwriting, causing this disturbance for the town's benefit and personal benefit of a business owner. If none of this had happened, we would not be here. I have lived in this town my entire life, and there has never been a mooring ordinance. Everybody in the community has been able to work together with their neighbor to resolve any issue. They have been respectful, and this lake and every lake in this town has never had an issue. It was not an issue until our town manager and the chair of our council made it an issue. And everyone has right-of-ways. That is a personal matter, and you handle that. Never have we ever had to deal with anything as ridiculous as what we're dealing with in this town. And that is only because it was made from the chair of our last council and the town manager. And if they had not done what they had done, we would not be here today. And that is why, environmentally, those boats are going in the water and they are not coming out. So milfoil is not being spread because we're not dragging our boat from lake to lake. And never at one time was that ordinance intended to prevent anything, and Andy West knows, because he was here with that too, never was that intended as an environmental issue that came in to pursue the goal that the town manager and the town chair had set. So we need to make that clear of why we are here all these years later, still doing this. It is not for personal property. It is nothing. We were wronged by this town, and we had to get an attorney in order to go forward. And we have had to work at compromise, and that is what we have been doing. It has nothing to do with milfoil or anything else. And this has gone on too long, and I have had it with this. This is ridiculous. And how embarrassing do we look at all the surrounding communities that we cannot make a decision and solve this problem after all these years?
Thank you, Sandy. Yes.
Okay.
Wagner, I'm a citizen here. I am also concerned about the low price, the $25 that people who have an existing mooring need to pay when if you're mooring on the docks, you're paying $10 a day. So that really bothers me, and I don't think that's quite fair. I think a reason why people did not come to the mooring committee because they're scared. There's a lot of tension, a lot of animosity, and people get very uncomfortable with that, like I am tonight. So I think that's why people didn't show up at those meetings.
Thank you, Wendy.
Yeah, I agree with that. If I could just finish to respond to what she was saying, I think that that's naive to say that this was all created just for what was going on at Maranacook and that everything's been fine at every other lake, because it hasn't. I'm here to tell you I've been on Cobbossee for 60 years. It hasn't been okay. And it hasn't gone smoothly. And people haven't cooperated with requests to cut down on moorings and other things. And, if you have a lot of money and you want to litigate, then great. But it does seem like in nearby jurisdictions, these things are settled by a mooring ordinance. And it's kind of, it's just naive to say that there's never been a problem, because maybe that means there's never been a problem for you, or there's never been a problem that you're aware of. But I can guarantee you there are problems.
Okay,
All right,
thank
Sherry,
you.
thank you. And I'd like to remind everyone that this is not meant to be confrontational, and we don't want it to get to that point. And thank you, Wendy, for reminding us of that. But I also want to keep going with the public comment. So
Can I make a comment?
yes, Aaron, what are you?
All right.
going to go?
First, I'm going to say that, I have watched the meeting, some on Zoom and others afterwards on YouTube. And I'll address a couple of the issues that I've heard. One being that this is now just a ordinance for the mooring field. And I believe that when it was discussed, it was mainly because brought up that the original ordinance was to address that specific issue and not moorings ad hoc or in general. And to everyone else's point that other communities have mooring regulations, it's actually the majority of lakes in the state of Maine do not have any mooring regulations whatsoever. And I'm not even sure that the state recommends that the towns get into the business of it, although we do have the express decision, or I should say the authority is within the municipal government to determine whether or not we regulate that activity. And I believe, we've had a good process. It has been an open process that the public, I don't see any reason why the public would have felt uncomfortable or should have felt uncomfortable. If that was an issue, I wish they would have addressed the town council before now. But as far as I'm concerned, this issue is resolved by a process that was set forth by this council, and that's it. If there's other issues that move forward, then we can address that moving forward. But as far as I'm concerned, this issue of the mooring field ordinance is set to rest with the committee's recommendations.
David Costa, property owner, lakefront property owner on Maranacook. The fact that this has changed from a town-wide mooring ordinance, I'm glad that it did, because as a property owner, I don't think the council should be getting into personal property issues. So, I believe that state allows moorings to be put in those bodies of water. And all of those original moorings down in the south field of Maranacook, this might be cutting out, and it's not. You might want to have somebody look at this. But again, the state allowed moorings to be put in there, and those moorings that are in that south field were legal when they were first put in there. So I believe that the state gives the council's authority to regulate moorings if there's an issue, like a public safety issue. So it's not a public safety issue if I have a couple of moorings in front of my personal property. If there is environmental issues, I think, like obviously Watershed has been trying to deal with those, and that may be something for them to look into more. But as far as this particular ordinance, I think we should put that to bed so that the mooring fields are done. And if we need more research for environmental issues, we should get our friends in all of those organizations that have been dealing with that involved to look at those issues. That's all I got.
I just have a few facts that I'd like to put forward regarding some comments that have been made. First of all, about the majority of towns in the surrounding areas having mooring ordinance, that I don't believe that's a true statement. The towns of Leeds, Manchester, Monmouth, Reedfield, West Gardner, Augusta, and Wayne, well, with the exception of Augusta, they're all towns that are on the very same bodies of water that we share with them, and they do not have mooring ordinances whatsoever. The other thing is regarding the environmental impact. Very early on in the original discussions of a mooring ordinance, there was some professionals here from the state, as well as obviously Watershed District, that were asked very directly if there is an environmental impact. And the environmental impact that they said that a boat going on and off a mooring has is less than a strong summer storm. And they didn't see any sort of environmental, severe or worrisome environmental impact that would cause at all. So I just wanted to, air a couple facts out there that I've been part of. I've heard myself as well as done lots of research. Thanks.
I just wanted to say, I think some people don't understand, because I've been on this, Andy's been on this, Bruce was on here, and Shannon was part of it, is this really, the council's kind of given this a yay or nay vote. We didn't have any involvement. We created a committee to charge this. So to say the council's duping folks over it is not a fair statement. And secondly, I think it wasn't coming to a council meeting to be scared about. I mean, they have a Zoom to get on to talk to. There's to reach out to the committee members. They were all publicly out there. You could have reached out to those folks, and you could have come to a public meeting with those folks if you were intimidated by this. But I want to understand that all the part of that was pretty contentious. We wanted to put that away and be done with it. So I think we charged the committee to come up with rules and regulations to a diverse group. I think they did a good job too. And I just wanted to make sure that it's not our intent to dupe anybody up here, so.
Okay. I can't support this, whether it goes to referendum or it stays at the council, until I know for a surety who's going to do this job and what it's going to cost. At a minimum, if we have a harbor master, we're looking at a boat, motor, trailer, depth finder, range finder, truck to tow the thing with. There's going to be some kind of payroll, even if it's a current town employee, they'll have to be compensated. And then we have training expenses. Okay. And then the other, and all that will range somewhere between $50,000 and $90,000.
Yeah.
And then the next thing is there are other non-compliant moorings around the lake. I know of one specifically. And although we're not supposed to dig into the heart of this ordinance does not address the fact that there may be other right-of-ways that already have 4 grandfathered boats. Okay. Add to that we've been very weak on enforcing standards for docks because we don't have the manpower. And I've been told that this job may be assigned to the code enforcement officer. And I wonder how that's going to work out.
May I?
You may.
Thank you.
Answers, please, not a lecture.
The answers are that we're not going to need a boat, a trailer, any of that stuff, simply because, keep in mind, we're regulating things that are within 200 feet of the shore. So you can either look out with the naked eyeball or with a pair of binoculars to
Rangefinder.
Whatever the case might be. I'm just suggesting we don't need boat, motor, all of those things. As far as I'm concerned, I think the only expense that we're going to be out is the initial harbor master training that would be necessary for our code enforcement officer. And, if at that point and the code enforcement officer would have a year to get that training. And then at that point, if we want to pay an additional stipend for these responsibilities, we'd be open to that. But again, I don't anticipate that this is going to be an onerous responsibility on anybody involved. And if I may, I want to just clarify one thing that was stated earlier about a $25 fee for the grandfathered moorings. The $25 fee would apply to all moorings, regardless of which public non-commercial mooring field that they're in. The only thing that the moorings in the south end of Maranacook Lake would be grandfathered from is the initial application process in order to establish a mooring field, because that field has already been established for a number of years now.
There is at least one other mooring field on the lake. I think there's 4 boats on a 10-foot right of way, and they should be grandfathered if this field is grandfathered.
Well, let me ask you a question. So does that field, does it have public access?
No.
Okay, so this ordinance only addresses fields that have public.
Okay.
So it's not regulated at all.
Are there other questions or comments from the audience? All right. If there's no other questions or comments on Zoom or in person, I will close the public hearing at 6:46.
There are also some minor, I'm not going to get into them, but there are also some minor illegalities in the ordinance itself, notwithstanding what Phil said.
Town attorney has.
I want to thank everybody that had comments and gave their input regarding this mooring field ordinance. We'll move on to item 82, consideration of the mooring field ordinance, the first reading.
I move to approve the mooring field ordinance as presented.
Second.
Discussion? Any discussion? I'd just like to sit there and say thank you to the committee. I feel that the process, since we put out that charge July of last year, we did receive a bunch of we did receive input today from residents stating that it seemed confrontational. I tried to stay out of this process the entire last year. I didn't watch any videos. I didn't really review any of the minutes. I just started reviewing it now as it's come onto the agenda. With that, looking at some of the Zooms, they seemed very casual and laid back, very open to suggestions, although very sparse in attendance. So I do feel that Aaron made a great point as far as the attendance of residents showing up. I would like to see more residents. We do have other committees and to participate in. I think that's the biggest thing, is that we need more community participation and not at the last minute, throughout the entire process. I think that it's very important. So that way, when it comes to the vote, whether we decide for it or we decide against it and it goes to referendum, everything has already been addressed in the process. And as Aaron had mentioned previously, if there was any kind of concern about any kind of confrontation or harassment or just not being able to speak up, I would appreciate the council being aware of that. When I first read through this in the last week, I did have some questions, some that I did reach out and seek clarifying guidance from the committee on, specifically pertaining to how this process went from a mooring committee to a mooring field ordinance, or mooring ordinance to a mooring field ordinance. And I do appreciate the fact that it was as a result of the findings that came back in that committee. So at this point, I will complete my comments. And maybe we should look at the reconsideration of the cost for the dock slips. So thank you. Any other comments?
I'll just say, I think that we can certainly probably readdress the cost of the mooring slips, but without inhibiting the ordinance going in effect. So I would just urge us to make a vote.
Madam Chair, can I just recognize the members of the committee, because I do want to say that I attended all the meetings, obviously, and I found the 7 citizens that served on this committee, they didn't always agree, but they managed to talk through their issues in a very constructive and productive way. And I think anyone who came to any of those meetings found it to be, very conversational in nature. It wasn't confrontational in the least. And so those citizens who served are Barb Brocious, Matthew Colpitz, Reggie Conrad, Dwight Dowdy, who's here in the back, Mike Ketchen, who has spoken earlier, and joining us online are Lynn Reed and Matthew Steele. I really think the community owes them a debt of gratitude, because they really invested a lot of time and brain power into this. And I do think it's a thoughtful approach to an issue that had inflamed passions in our community.
I would also like to make a motion to waive the second hearing.
Hold on, we haven't voted yet.
I'm sorry.
So there was a motion and there was a second. All in favor to approve the mooring field ordinance as presented? All opposed? Yes, opposed. Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to waive the second reading.
I feel confident in the ability of the mooring committee that we appointed to enact and provide a good, sound document as they were charged. And I thank them all.
Second.
All in favor to waive the second reading?
Discussion?
Discussion?
Sorry.
Yeah. I do appreciate the efforts of the mooring committee. I just would prefer that this goes to referendum so that when we incur the inevitable expenses of a harbor master, it will be the people's choice, not ours. So I'm not opposed. If we went to the referendum, moorings would be there the rest of the season, and in all likelihood, even if they didn't approve this ordinance, the moorings would still be. So I'm not really opposed to the moorings. I'm just opposed to not anticipating the expenses, and I'm opposed to adding extra duties to an already overburdened department.
Thank you, Andy. So all in favor to waive the second reading? All opposed? Thank you. All right, moving on to item 83, a school bus update by Superintendent Jim Hodgkin.
Good evening. You are going to hear this before my school board hears it Wednesday night, so you could. Okay, cutting in and out. Speaking loud enough so you can hear me anyway. We did have Josh Wheeler and I had a meeting with the EPA last week, members from the environmental. He met with us, received his name from and yeah, it was a very good meeting, lasted about 45 minutes. I guess I'll start with the end and work backwards to answer the question. Basically, they are strongly encouraging us, short of requiring us to put our buses back into service. They have a 5-year warranty on them. They are now all properly inspected, ready to go. We have one driver who's chomping at the bit to get back into us. But they are, the meeting was great. I think they greatly appreciated the information that we provided to them. I'm pleased to report is that they said this is not the norm for electric buses around the country. Obviously, they're dealing with the entire country. That the issue we had, the biggest issue we had, was a critical failure, and that's pretty much the exception, not the rule. They're not seeing a lot of those types of issues, and they basically told us that they would strongly encourage us, put the buses back into service. We're going to run them. I don't think we'll put them back into service this year. A number of days left. They really want us to get them back in place beginning in the fall, and we will stay in touch with them, particularly if we continue to have issues, et cetera, like what other places are having around the country. I don't know if it just happened to be the timing, but it seems that, I know Josh has reported this to you guys before and to the school board, that seems like I think there's 11 schools in the state of Maine that got buses, electric buses from the same company. We've all had issues. We are one of 2 schools that had to take our buses offline. You know, our buses were on for 3 months. Back to the factory, and they went through them all. I don't have that laundry list. Josh has it of things that they found and things that were corrected. When they came back, I think this was, you haven't heard this yet, but when they came back to us after 3 months being gone and had the factory go through them all 4 of them failed inspection on return to us. Now that list was not that significant, and we had the Line Electric, the state police meet together to review the findings and make the corrections that need to be made, no cost to us. And that's the big point from the EPA, is that the critical failure should not totally weigh in on certainly it's a factor. But they agreed with Lion that the buses did what they're supposed to. Josh should share with you here because it happened twice. They, for a period of time, well, within an hour of each other, the same bus. We rebooted it, Josh rebooted it, got it started, and then failed again before we got back to the bus yard. And Lion had told us we shouldn't have done that. Really, once it failed, we should have just had it hauled away and not attempted to reset it. So that might have been a miscommunication. I'm not really sure. But they, in my notes, but they really want us to vet the buses while under warranty. We have a 5-year warranty on them. And they basically warned us, I couldn't tell us exactly, but we said we are required to use them as part of the agreement, getting them. I said, what are you looking for? I said, I'd like to, getting a sense that the board is considering returning them all. And if we can get another vendor who hasn't had these issues, that would be great. But I know Josh has said, and I've said, please support about the electric buses concept. They really want us to vet, they want us to drive them, and they want us to see if they, our biggest issue, or my biggest issue is really related to my concern on the heating system. Those buses still have diesel tanks on them because the heaters are run by diesel. Twice last year, we had situations where the heaters didn't work. The company says that's what they spent a lot of time looking at, and that is to work. The EPA says, generally speaking, that has not been an issue with other electric buses. And so they're suggesting that we come back into service and vet them while it's under the warranty. Basically, we made it feel to me like we have to own them for the 5 years that they're under warranty, and then after that, we can do whatever we want with them. Hopefully by that time, we have a better sense. And by the way, I think I mentioned this before, that warranty starts all over again. We've had them for a year, but they're starting the 5-year warranty over next fall. So, they will continue to look at other, if we continue to have problems, they will look at other options. Lion would have to pay back the money. The money obviously went from the federal government to Lion Electric. Lion would have to take them back, agree to take them back and refund buses what they would consider for us. I think the big thing they kept saying is they're just not generally seeing these problems. And I know there was some concern at the board level. I don't know if it came up here or not about critical failure. One of our board levels, one of the former drivers, basically said the same thing happened with the diesel bus. Diesel bus lost all power, therefore couldn't brake. So that it happened is not cool, but it's usual. Basically, going to be able to quit running them, and it's to happen. They're going to actually free.
Thank you. I have questions from James and then Aaron.
Jim, thanks for coming up. I think you guys are doing a good job with something that's kind of challenging. But you did kind of answer some of my questions there, but I got a few here. So the company's still in business, and are they still producing this bus line?
They are.
Okay, that's helpful. And then do we feel like we're going to purchase those other diesel buses in lieu of trying to put these back into production?
We already have.
Okay.
We got emergency funding for buses. You guys
Right.
approved
Yeah, I remember. Yep.
those that we actually have received all 3 of them.
Okay, good. And you answered the warranty, which starts all over, which is great. Are they still going to be like paying for the cost of the downtime? If we had to rent something or reimbursement as they did last time?
Yeah, the buses that we bought, we've already sent, I think we have 1 rental bus left. getting the third new bus.
Yeah.
I don't anticipate, Josh doesn't anticipate that we would need to rent buses.
Okay.
Be a hardship.
Sure.
We need to do some checks,
Yeah,
but,
But the company would, if they had to, would they? Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Okay, so Jim, this is probably not really so much question as just comment on public record. I've been watching this closely and at the state level and federal level. And I understand the EPA's position on wanting to push their grant program to be effective. However, I do think it should be on record that Lion has failed to meet the basic standards of being able to maintain reliability and then backing up what they're selling and having a reliable situation. Now, granted, it shouldn't have taken what it's taken to fix these buses. And it certainly should not have taken the back and forth and the kind of saying, well, they work other places. I'm not interested in other places. I'm interested in the buses that we have. And, hopefully one of them watches this, but I doubt it. But honestly, if that company wants to have a good reputation, then they have the duty to provide it and earn it. As far as I'm concerned, if these buses continue to be a problem, then we will address it again and keep sending them back, and they'll keep fixing them.
yeah. It's gonna interrupt, but, that's the understanding. And I was very impressed with the people from the EPA because they sort of indicated what I said earlier. This seems to be a bad batch of buses that were all produced at about the same time that came to Maine. And so they want us to continue to stay in touch with them, make them aware of. Sadly, I don't know if this was out. I've had this conversation so many times. There's no such thing as a lemon for buses. They're too big. But that was one of the first things we looked at. That these are not working. The other thing is, two of the buses, you may remember, have never been put into service. It had nothing to do with mechanical issues. It had to do with windshields. So why it took the better part of a year to get the windshield corrected, it was really frustrating. So, I don't know, we're going to drive them over the summer and put them back into service, hopefully all. That is exactly what our position is. We're going to hold them to the fire with respect to anything that goes wrong. They need to correct it. Always be it.
I have a question. Thank you, Superintendent. Am I under the understanding that the state police have inspected all the 4 buses and approved them now and all the repairs have been made?
That's correct.
So they all have stickers? Okay, that's great. And I guess it's the old adage, it looks good from my house, but I live in another country. So I guess it's on us to provide them with all the information that they need and be a real spur in them.
I will say that the EPA, the guy who did most of the talking to them, did basically say that they're going to be researching what the process is, because they haven't had this issue before. All the buses they have around the country, if they continue to fail on a regular basis, safety concern for us children. What will happen? What is the process? They knew, of course, that Lion would have to give them money back. Some this company's already been under. They had a major recall 4 years ago. Nothing related to this type of thing, but I agree with what you said here. They want to stay in business, and this is what kind of made us feel a little bit better when they were telling us they were going to get our buses back. The president said to us, "We have to make this right. This is our reputation." I was like, "Yeah, you're right. Got to make it right, because otherwise, we're going to continue to make mistakes. Your company's reputation."
We now have Councilor Caprera joining us via Zoom.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. We'll move on to item 84, and we will open the public hearing for the proposed fiscal year 25 municipal and school budgets at 7:06. Thank you for your patience. Do we have anybody that would like to come to the podium and comment on the school or town budgets? Public hearing. All right, if we have no comments or questions or statements from anyone in the audience, I will close the public hearing at 7:07. Moving on to item 85, consideration of resolution 2024-4 fiscal year 25 municipal budget.
Ask if we get a presentation, kind of an overview and.
Yeah, certainly.
As part of that, can you explain how all the different pieces, because there's all kinds of, what is there, 6 different things that we're voting on. Can you explain how they all kind of?
I'll do my best. So, so first of all, just a brief overview for our audience. So the overall increase in expenses, when you take into account the town's expenses, the appropriation to the Winthrop Public Schools and to Kennebec County, overall was 2.92%, which I think is lower than a lot of us were anticipating when this budget process began, especially considering the fact that at one point, our appropriation to the county was slated to increase by 45%. It did increase, I think, by a healthy 27%, which is not great, but not as bad as it could have been. The purely municipal expenses, those are the expenses related directly to the town's government, increased by 1.95%. And I think that's a fairly remarkable figure, given that all of our union positions got a 3% raise, and other positions got raises of 0 to 5%. And payroll represents about 3/4 of the town's expenses. So when you give a 3% raise to, probably 90% of your workforce, it does have a financial impact. We did manage to reduce the departmental budget in 12 of our 27 town budget categories. We were very discriminating as far as our expenses this year. We had increases of less than 5% in another 6 departments. And so the places where we had fairly marked increases, I think, can very easily be explained. For instance, our election budget is going to increase pretty significantly this year because we have a high turnout election, presidential election coming in November, and that comes with more expense. Our public safety costs have increased because we're being charged higher water rates by the Winthrop Utility District and the Greater Augusta Utility District for the water that serves our hydrants. So that's an unavoidable cost for us. And then, as we talked about before, our general assistance budget has increased dramatically as well. So whereas about 2 years ago, we were budgeting $10,000 per year for general assistance, now it's $72,000. And we've talked ad nauseum about what's going into that. The overall increase in our projected municipal revenues is up 9.45%. So that's significant as well, simply because that helps to offset the burden on property tax payers for that. The increase in property taxes to cover municipal expenses, now that this does not include the schools, but it does include the county, is 1.52%. And of the town's $11.2 million, the increase necessary to be raised by taxes is about $98,000, again, out of an $11.2 million budget. So we won't know yet what the increase or what the impact on the mill rate will be, but that will be largely dependent on, that will be largely dependent Can you folks online hear us now?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Linda. So, so we don't know what the impact on the mill rate will be. It will be largely dependent upon how much new value that we've added. But we added quite a bit of value last year, and Code Enforcement Officer Mark Arsenault has said that, you know, we're seeing a similar amount of construction activity this year as we did last year. So, you know, we'll keep our fingers crossed and hope that there's no impact whatsoever on the mill rate. And then the superintendent can speak better to this than I can, but there is a 6.22% increase in school expenditures, and he's been here to explain that to you folks. And as a result, the amount to be raised by taxes to cover the school budget is an additional 4.95%. So you ask about all of these resolutions. So the first one is simply the resolution to approve the municipal budget. The second one is the resolution to approve the school budget, or, you know, what we typically think of as the school budget for your pre-K through grade 12, all right? But then in addition to that, you have to consider how much, another resolution, how much additional local funds are going to be needed in order to support that school budget. Additional local funds being all those dollars that are not state or federal dollars in order to cover the school's budget. There's another resolution for approving the adult education budget and the school nutrition budget, which I guess, Jim, would be sort of pseudo enterprise accounts. And then there's another order to approve our annual equipment and vehicle lease purchases. And this year, we're only proposing to do that with one piece of equipment, that being a new police patrol car. And then you will set the interest rate for the overpayment of taxes. That is, if someone overpays their taxes and they want their money back, you know, we're recommending that you give them an additional 1% as interest. And then the rate for failing to pay your taxes on time, the interest rate for that, which is 8.5%. That's the maximum allowed by state law. We would recommend the maximum simply because that's the greatest incentive to pay your taxes on time, and that's what we want folks to do. So does that answer all your questions, Aaron?
Are we discussing this at this time?
Yes, this is the public discussion, Linda. I'm just gonna
As
make
far as
one-
I'm concerned, I will vote for the town budget. I believe that Anthony and his department heads have done a great job in trying to keep the taxes down, given, you know, the situation, in terms of folks are struggling. They're struggling to pay their energy bills. They're struggling to pay their food bills, their food costs, gas, everything has increased. And as far as I'm concerned, the school ought to do the same. I'm not in favor of the school budget right now. I think that a 6.22%, you know, translates into a 4.9% increase. That's too high. That is too high right now. People are struggling and costs are increasing across the board, and people can't afford this. I'm tired of, you know, the taxes have gone up exponentially in this town over the last several years, and I don't feel we can afford it. So I am voting against the school budget. I will vote for the municipal budget, and that's where I stand.
I just wanted to make a few comments as well. I do appreciate, Anthony, all the hard work that you've done, along with all the department heads. I know we have pretty early on had set a pretty, I think, strict goal of trying to be as flat as possible without, you know, sacrificing service, which is always difficult to do, but I think we've nearly been able to do that. Also, I wanted to commend the town manager and the chair for addressing, and other members of the council for addressing the, and being, I think, the first to address the issue with the county budget, and engaging those individuals at the county level to discuss, to come up with solutions, because we can sit here and complain about things, and that is not going to make a difference to taxpayers. When I ran for council and wanted to run, it was important for me to make sure that we address the issue that the rising costs to live in this town is becoming a severe burden to those who are on fixed incomes especially. So I do think we do have further work to do, but I think this is a good place to start. And I think we can look forward to increasing revenues. I think in the next few years, if we continue to work together in improving our downtown, when it comes to participation, we really do need everybody's input and everybody's involvement in order to assure that we do maximize the potential for commercial development and thus increasing tax revenue to decrease the burden on residents. So with that, I do approve the municipal budget. I think that I will support
Shannon,
that.
can I just say one word? I forgot about the county budget. The county budget is outrageous. And as far as I'm concerned, that is just, I've never seen a 28% increase in anything like that. That is just outrageous. I said those folks, they need to be voted out of office. As far as I'm concerned, a 44% increase was terrible. Now a 28% increase. Come on, folks, you got to manage this stuff properly. And as far as I'm concerned, that's another reason why I'm not voting for, I'm voting for the municipal budget, but I don't like it. And that's one aspect I don't like, because I think it's, in my opinion, it's just irresponsible in this time, this day and age when folks are struggling. So I just add that.
Okay, here goes. Get myself in trouble again. Right on the first page, apparently we're paying, what, $85,000 a year in a TIF reimbursement agreement?
Yes, that's a contractual agreement.
Okay, yeah, I understand that. When does that expire?
It expires in 2026, but as we've talked about, we're going to try to extend that with some new terms. That's one of the things we're going to be working on in FY25.
I am aware that we've talked about it, and my 2 cents is that we need to do something drastic. Either the people receiving the TIF need to start doing something productive that's going to benefit the town, or we're going to have to reduce or revoke the TIF. Okay, this is a ridiculous amount of money considering the return. Okay, the next thing I have is under town manager, you appear to be listing the total salary for the administrative assistant. Make no mistake, she's a very hard worker and does a great job. But you seem to be listing the total salary for the administrative assistant under the town manager. So that would indicate to me that that's her primary work assignment, is as being the administrative assistant to you.
Well, Andy, we just had to put it in the budget somewhere. So,
Okay.
so putting it under the town managers seemed like the appropriate place to put it.
Okay, but if she's working for 2 different departments, that we should know that.
She is working for 2
Okay,
different
then that
departments.
should be
And
reflected in the budget.
well, I think that I don't want to get argumentative about this, but I think that overly complicates the budget when we're trying to divide one person's salary between 2 or 3 different departments.
And then I have the same question about the planner. I'll preclude my comments by saying I've had quite a bit of interaction with the planner. Worked very hard, does a wonderful job, but her entire salary appears to be charged off to the planning board. And I know that when she was hired, we agreed to the position of planner. There were other duties that she was to have. This would indicate that the vast majority of her work is with the planning board and not so much work as far as getting grants and stuff. Once again, I would like to see the salary distributed where the work is being done.
Where would you put it then, Andy? I mean,
I think part of
give me
the
a clue.
planner is if the planner is, say, doing grants, and, 20% of the time or whatever the figure is, then 20% of the salary ought to be under the town manager's administrative department. And then with the executive assistant, if the executive assistant is spending a goodly portion of time helping out codes, then part of that salary should be attributed to codes.
If I can
So we
see, I
have a
mean, but
more accurate picture
the
of what's going
bottom
on.
line, it doesn't really affect as much as we might be talking about, it's in their job description, I believe, that would address, the breakdown. We can attribute percentages, but I think as far as using it in the budget, it does make sense to be a single line item versus trying to break it up. Maybe we could potentially break it up by percentage, but leave it in a line.
So
I mean, I've asked that question several times of what the distribution of the workload is. Okay, and really I've never got an answer. So this is just another way to get at that.
Well, they haven't
But
been
you're
here
adding a
long
lot of
enough to
line
really to determine that yet, too.
Overcomplicating it.
Are there any other questions or comments?
Simple one, and it probably Chief could answer it or Anthony can answer it. The new cruiser we're buying, I'm just in favor of putting the old cruiser back up for auction as we did last time. So I just want, before I forget to mention it, seemed to work out well last time for the recipients and in the town, so versus trading it in. Yeah, whatever, if we don't, but that's.
I would
I'm in
agree.
favor. So.
we will definitely do that.
Okay, the chair will entertain a motion. For item 85, consideration of the resolution 2024.
I move to approve the resolution 2024 fiscal year 25 municipal budget.
All in favor?
I'm in favor.
All are in favor. Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to waive the second hearing or the second reading. I apologize.
Second.
All in favor to waive the second reading?
I'm in favor.
All are in favor? Thank you very much to the municipal staff and department heads and our town manager for coming up with this municipal budget. All right, we will move on to item 86, consideration of resolution 2024-5 fiscal year 25 school budget, public education pre-K through grade 12.
I make a motion to approve resolution 2024-5 FY25 school budget, public education PK through 12.
A second.
I'll second.
I have one question for the superintendent. Jim, so when did the school board vote on this budget that we have in front of us?
We voted about a month ago.
Okay. All right, a month ago. Thank you.
And I ask one more question. Superintendent, originally the school board had proposed how much of an increase, and you were able to walk them off that ledge?
Well, the uncut budget that was first presented to the school board was 15.56.
Thank you.
Does this include the increase for the salaries that we had talked about initially?
Yeah, we are not done negotiations yet. The only thing we have left is salary. So this does cover that.
And those aren't mandated at this point. Those are.
No, but there's two things in here that really stand out in terms of increases that the council actually gave thumbs up.
Can you please talk in the microphone? I can't hear you.
I'll talk to the microphone, but the microphone keeps cutting out. So one of the things that I shared with you is that there is legislation pending to get the minimum teacher salary to 50,000. We're currently at 40,500. I anticipate that won't happen for probably 4 years, but we're not going to go not going to have a $9,000 increase to the base in 1 year. That would be astronomical. So I had said that we were going to our proposal is to increase it by $2,500 a year, get us in 3 years. We only have a 3-year contract, get us to 48,000. And then we'll have to deal with it with our next negotiations. Very close to and the other thing is that the council did approve, because you had to approve the bond. The other really big increase in here is $196,000 for the bond that covers the boilers, the sidewalk, the lighting retrofit. That accounts to over $400,000.
One more question. How far, I know we had talked about, like as far as the building maintenance or upgrades, or there was a bunch of stuff that was needed. how far along are we on that process based on the recommendations that we had?
Well, there's still quite a list. I have a feeling, and Joel's just hearing this, that we've done a lot over the last 3 years. Joel has done a great job managing that as the maintenance, facilities maintenance person, and we found some good revenue sources to be able to do a lot of those things. There's quite a list still that came out of that study 5 years ago. But we probably are not going to be able to do too much with that over the next year or two, because it's going to be very expensive.
All right, Jim, I don't have any question. I'm just gonna make a overall statement, kind of, again, in looking through past, and this is not a challenge unique to our community by any means, but school budgets have presented a huge increase to a lot of municipal budgets or TIF or mill rates rather. And so I think moving forward, that's something that communities and ours included have to start to really think about how to get creative, whether that's with the school curriculum or, lobbying the state and continuing to lobby for, because I don't see that these increases are sustainable. It certainly is not for this community. And what we're looking at, I think when I was looking around per capita, are we around 15,000 per student roughly? Somewhere around there, yeah, I think. And so, it's an old model, and I think the results that we're getting with the amount of investment that we're putting into doesn't necessarily equate to better outcomes. So I think in the future, and this may be addressed more towards the board, that we're going to have to maybe rethink how we go forward in the next few years.
I just want to remind the council, as I did last year, and I had the current numbers, which are not available to us at this point, that we looked at 12 schools in the Kennebec Valley area, and we were 10th in per pupil expenditure, 10th. Means there's only 2 schools in the entire 12 schools that we looked at that are paying less than we are per pupil.
I have one more quick question. It's kind of related to the budget, but I was just at graduation this past weekend and yesterday. Noticed 33 kids.
There was 34 yesterday, but that's the smallest class we have in the system.
That was my question. Looking at the other kids coming forward, they are bigger classes.
We graduated 34. I think we have 60 or 61 coming in, and they're all between 55 and 60 coming up through.
Okay.
You're talking about 61 coming in as freshmen?
Correct.
Okay. I think back when we were in, it was like
Superintendent, I have one question. If there's no others from council, thank you. In the budget that we received, your expenditure budget, the resolution provides $13,542,403. And in your budget resolution, it was $13,600,408 or 3. Is that a 3 or an 8? 3. Yeah, 3. Why is there a difference?
I don't know why there's a difference. Mine is exactly the first number that's in the resolution, the 13.
So 13,542?
Yes, 403, correct.
Jim, you may have said it, and I probably got distracted and missed you commenting on the increases of the salaries. What is your step to, how, for the next few years to get it up to maybe that state mandated rate? You're going to go, from 40 to 5, you're going to jump up a couple thousand each year to try to get to there, or?
$2,500 a year for the next.
25, okay.
So by the time we're at 40,500, and if it's approved, which I'm very confident it will be, we'll get to 48 in 3 years.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Just looking at all of the changes that I have received over the last 2 months, I will be turning this back to the school. So, all right, we have a motion and we have a second. All in favor to approve the resolution 2024-5 fiscal year school budget public education pre-K through grade 12. All in favor? All opposed?
I'm opposed.
Motion fails. We'll waive the second reading. So moving on to item 87, consideration of resolution 2024-6, fiscal year 25 school budget, additional local funds. Motion?
Make a motion to approve resolution 2425-6, FY 25 school budget, additional local funds.
Is there a second?
Second.
Madam Chair, just a question for the superintendent. Given what happened on the last vote, Jim, should we proceed with this resolution?
I think we already have, Anthony.
Okay.
All in favor? All opposed?
I'm opposed.
2-5. Motion fails. Item 88, consideration of resolution 2024-7, fiscal year 25 school budget, adult education.
This, I believe, I was looking at this the other day, that's an even 100,000.
The increase is $2,000.
Just looking at all the other. For some reason, all has all round. Or is there? Almost like the budget itself was just kind of like a yes or not.
Well, it's not really a guess, but it was a little bit more challenging this year because you may or may not remember that we joined with the Kennebec Valley Adult Ed Group. And so it's been a challenge for Josh this year we're anticipating that number will go down as we're part of that group in the future. But this year, during the first year of it, it was really challenging. And so he did essentially leave it where it was.
Was an increase of $2,000.
$2,000, yeah.
Is there a suggested motion?
I move to approve resolution 2024-7, fiscal year 25 school budget adult education.
All in favor?
I can support that.
Is that a no? Nay?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Linda. Was that a yes or a no?
I can, yes, I support it.
All are in favor? Do we want, is there a motion to waive?
I make a motion to waive the second reading.
All in favor to waive the second reading?
Of that particular one?
Yes,
Yes, I'm in favor of that.
all are in favor. Thank you. Item 89, consideration of resolution 2024-8, fiscal year 25 school budget, school nutrition.
Sure. Motion to approve resolution 2024-7 FY 25 school budget adult. Yeah, I did it, didn't I? Resolution 2024-8 FY 25 school budget, school nutrition.
I'll second.
Just to clarify, that's nothing. There's nothing on that.
Jim, did you hear that question?
Nothing on that line item.
School nutrition.
Typically for school nutrition, we just add because it is an enterprise account, it runs very much like a business. It's intended to be self-sustaining, although it isn't self-sustaining. So we typically only add what we're asking the voters to support, add additional support, and it should be. Oh, we're not asking for any additional money from the voters this year.
And was there any last year?
There wasn't any last year. Prior to that, I think it was $250,000. That program ran in the black overall with their contribution. And so This is going to be a bit of a stretch this year to not ask for the town for some. We actually got cited by the Department of Education, and our director had to go on essentially had to spend some money to get the amount of carryover down, which is not a really bad thing, except that it's money that was, we didn't have to put money in for equipment or anything this year because we had to spend that down. So you're right, there's no money coming from the public this year, again.
So the resolution has town council resolves. Is that a portion that's already in their budget? It should be separate.
That's what I'm talking about. That's the amount of money that we're projecting. It's like any business, you're projecting what your costs are going to be. And then we would.
So typically, so what happens then is that you, at the end of this next year, if you went above what you've already projected or their self-sustaining enterprise, then you would be asking for money.
Correct.
Okay.
So there is a motion and a second. All in favor?
I'm in favor.
All are in favor?
I make a motion to waive the second reading on the resolution 2024-8, fiscal year school budget, school nutrition.
All in favor to waive the second reading?
I'm in favor.
All are in favor. Thank you. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 90, consideration of order 2024-1, authorizing equipment vehicle lease purchases. That is for a PD Cruiser Unit 79.
Make a motion to approve, where are we? Yes, okay. Move to approve order 2024-1, authorizing the equipment vehicle lease purchase.
I'll second.
All in favor? Linda out?
Linda fell off the call.
All right. All are in favor, 6-0. Item 91, to determine the rate of interest that shall apply to overpayment of taxes, recommended 1%.
Is this a fairly standard rate?
It is. It's standard across Maine municipalities. We typically don't pay that out. Typically, people are fine with just us applying that credit to the subsequent year's tax statement, and then they pay less the following year.
I move to set the rate of interest for overpayment of taxes at 1%.
Second.
All in favor? All are in favor? Item 92, to determine the rate of interest that shall apply to delinquent taxes during fiscal year 25, a recommended 8.5%.
What has that number been historically?
Historically, it's been whatever the state maximum is, which fluctuates from year to year. So this past year, I believe it was 8%. Sarah, does that sound right? Yeah. And so this year it's 8.5%. Sort of depends upon what the interest rates federally are.
I move to set an interest rate of 8.5% for delinquent taxes, fiscal year 2025.
All in favor? All are in favor? Item 75, consideration of disbursement warrants tabled from the May 20th, 2024 meeting.
I move to approve the tabled disbursement warrants as presented.
All in favor? All are in favor? Item 93, consideration of approval of the minutes of May 6th, May 13th, and May 20th council meetings.
I move to approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
All in favor? All are in favor. Consideration of recommendations from the Appointments Committee.
I have no recommendations at this time.
Thank you. Item 95, an update from Joel Stoneton on the Winthrop Sports Complex and its long-term maintenance. Thank you for joining us. Looking forward to this.
So I think you guys got most of the materials. I'm not really sure where you want to start. So I had a bunch of questions that Shannon and Andy and I had kind of been talking about over the last year or so. We tried to get a community forum going and things just got out of control as far as time management. So it just didn't happen. So here I am. So I guess where I would start, and then you guys can ask me questions if you want to, is we have one more step to do, putting in some bleachers and a cement pad down below, and pretty much phase one is done. We have a speaker system at this point, but we're looking to upgrade, and we do have some money to do that, not from the school, but from the committee itself. I'll just wait for it, I think, which is fine. So then, you know, phase two, and I tried to stress this a little bit, and I'm not sure if it came through when I was writing it out, but yes, yeah, I have that here. But in phase two, that, you know, that to come up with a timeline for you is really difficult at this point because we just don't know when we're going to have that money together. I'm actually meeting tomorrow with McGee again to look at finalizing numbers so we have something to shoot for again. Yeah, I guess that's kind of where it's at. We do know that within 5 years that all the sponsorships come down. I think I put that in there for you. And then we'll have that money coming in. Whether we use that to move to phase two, and we won't move to phase two until we have all the money to do that, so it's completed. We'll kind of figure out where we are from fundraising. We are hoping to start to leave the lights on overnight to get people down there, you know, walking and so forth. Get some interest from the town. And then move forward with some more fundraising when we kick off again in the fall when we're there for the whole season. So that's kind of where we are at financially. And I'm not sure what else you'd like to know, except that, again, phase one is done pretty much. And if we don't do anything for 5 or 10 years, extremes here, you're okay. Everything will stand on its own. We're back in compliance now. We were cited for ADA violations as well as we had unsafe areas that we did some drilling that we found that we had to address that would have been almost $500,000. So you kind of look at it that way. It's been a pretty good swing and we're doing okay.
Question, regarding the baseball field.
Yes.
Is that back on track, back online?
Yeah, so part of the reason McGee is coming out tomorrow is take a look at the grade force. We've had that done twice. That was a runoff that just wasn't seen. We're actually getting all the water from the grade school, the playground, down the new road, down to the skate park, and that's what's washing it out. So we're looking into some drainage now that we can put in there to catch all of that.
So it got washed out again after we had it redone?
Yeah, if you go there right now and take a
I haven't
look.
been over, but
Yeah,
I
it's
just,
kind of frustrating. And it's nobody's fault. It really isn't. I mean, we're doing the best we can to get it figured out. And which I think also brings me back to another point I think Shannon had asked is our intent as far as the rec department goes is we want to get you back to 100% of what it was when we moved it. And then from there, just as far as usage goes, Lonnie's really good about filling out paperwork with me about when he needs to use it, just like the gyms and so forth. Sure.
is the track part of it, is that part of the phase two?
Yeah, so phase two is the track. Believe it or not, this kind of surprised me. The retaining wall is what costs the most money. And to get 6 lanes in there to hold a track meet, you have to go into the hill, and that's going to cost quite a bit of money to get that done. What you see now is actually set up for about 4 lanes. All that work has been done underneath. We've already paid for that to be done. Not Joel Stonton personally, the committee. But yeah, so, I mean, we're kind of ahead a little bit. Now we just gotta reset and get our funds back up. Yes.
Well, it looked to me like the landscape architect there got things squeezed in pretty tight. I'm sure there was good reason.
Sure.
But right now, I attended a game at Maxwell Field the other night, and people that want to get around the backside are forced to walk on the gravel slope that holds up the tennis court.
Sure.
Respectfully, I suggest put a boardwalk behind the dugout.
Yeah, so the
Otherwise, that
intent,
gravel is going to end up down and people are going to be tripping all over it.
yeah, so right now we're looking at getting the grade so nothing washes out to begin with. The
Right.
intent was to open up that area a little bit more because you need throwing events for track and field. So that's kind of why we put it back in that corner and just kind of flipped it from where it was. And then we also lost area, obviously, with the runoff for the retention pond. So I think once we get that gravel taken care of, then we'll be able to take a look at some other things. Personally, as a game manager at the high school, I'm glad people aren't behind the home plate. I'd rather have them stay out in the outfield, just because it's been quite a problem for me this year, even with me standing right there.
It'd be all right, as long as we don't get any little guys hitting home runs when we're having a track meet.
Yeah, that's all right though, right? We'll take that.
Thank you, Joe.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mr. Stoughton, I'd like
Yes.
to applaud you for your efforts. They've been tireless, and you came to town council with a vision. And it's nice to see that completed. It looks beautiful down there, and I applaud your committee as well.
Thank you very much. They
Yeah.
deserve a lot of the credit.
Maybe that calls for a round of clapping.
That's all good. Not why we do it. But thank you. I mean, everybody that's been involved has been a huge help. I think if you were at class night the other night, we actually celebrated some of the folks that stepped up and did quite a few things for us financially to make it happen. So, yeah.
So Joel, I think, get up in front of you too.
So this is what we hope to have as the final result. So we had some renderings done, and as you can see, it's beautiful. And then there's some other things that I put in there, just that just to be very clear too, the parking lot was a separate issue that we secured funds from the revolving renovation fund from the state, but it was certainly part of the larger plan. So yeah, I mean, it's you know, I hated seeing the ski hill go. I'm not going to lie, as a Winthropian. But it was nice to see that we actually have enough parking now. We have over 200 spots here that we can park people for large events. We're actually discussing possibly doing graduation next year down on the field.
Well, Joel, thanks for everything you've done. I think it looks great.
Sure.
You know, being a Winthrop and alumni such as yourself, but a little help you out with a public service announcement. What do we got for fundraisers coming up that you do have planned that people can kind of bite into and look forward to?
So next week or the week after, we're trying to set up, we're just trying to get the kids out the building right now and let things settle, and we'll get together. Hopefully this summer, to be honest with you, like I said, we're just trying to generate some interest in there. I can tell you that Monday through Friday, something that I saw coming and I'm not loving is that I'm now managing that year round, which is okay, because we have summer leagues down there. You know, we have camps down there and so forth, making a little bit of money. We made around 6,000 this year just out of a month of rentals, which is good. Next year we're hosting an MPA soccer final, so you know there's some things happening. But to answer your question and get it out there is, with those things, we're going to start to put signs up again where you can go to places to donate. I know that there's I think a real large grassroots coming up from runners. It's one of the few things you can do for your life. Not me personally, but it does happen for some, I guess. But then in the fall, when we're back together, we'll start to do some kickoffs and start to talk about those things. Part of one of the things that Stacy Schumann came up with, which was, I thought really helpful, was that because of the 5-year cycle, you can re-up. We may lose some sponsors. Myself personally, I mean, we did put something up for Kels, but you know, we can't afford 25,000 every 5 years, but that's okay. You know, someone else can do that. And with those 10 signs right there, you've got $250,000. So as far as the public goes, Jim, I'm not doing a good job really answering your question. I don't have a clear answer for you because right now that's just basically a 30,000-foot view. Yes.
So I just put in, or I had requested, you know, what would be the relationship essentially between the recreation department and the school, because down the line, you know, yourself and Lonnie aren't necessarily going to be the ones overseeing those two separate areas. And as you've already hinted towards it, it is going to be a year-round facility.
Yes.
Do you have something on paper, or is it right now, is it just kind of understanding between you and Lonnie?
So Lonnie is part of the committee, so he's been part of all those steps, and I don't want to speak for you, so you're welcome to come up if you want to, but we did go through that process. And basically it's a minimum rental for anything that's on the field. Anything in that area is not a charge. It's just when you have to take a moment and say, from such and such a time, this is what it's going to be. So I think it's $55. That's it.
And that's for like any individual outside of the town, or is that the town itself?
So that it depends what the town is. I guess I'm getting those confused, but if Lonnie wants a piece of the field to do baseball like this spring, then it's a minimum rental of $55.
And then Lonnie, I'm assuming that would be, you've discussed that it's a fee that you're charging for that. Okay. And then is this, because again, you two aren't going to be the ones around in the future.
Yes.
Is there a written agreement and policy in place?
Yes.
Is Lonnie saying yes? Okay.
Yes, so one of the things that we first had to do when we became a nonprofit, we've been working on this for about 3 years before that was done,
Right.
is we came up, with bylaws and so forth, but we also have something, we didn't reinvent the wheel. We just talked to other areas that do this already. And it's written right out that if you're for-profit, this is what it is. If you're nonprofit, if you're school, there's no charge, obviously. And then there's a whole piece of, having insurance and that type of stuff, so we're not liable.
So that committee that you guys are a part of is staying in place?
100%. And if it doesn't, I think when it dissolves, it goes right to the school. So and this kind of gets back to, I think, one of Shannon's questions. That group gifted it to the town.
Yep.
The town then gifted it to the school. Who is in charge of it? We just created the policy to work around it.
Okay, so
And just-
in
go ahead.
essence, then that committee could then adapt rules if necessary. Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
So just looking at the long-term, short-term maintenance.
Yes.
Again, you did mention under here, it'll be more than enough for the 10 years that we discussed for the turf.
Yes.
Now, do you have specific costs associated with the maintenance for the turf and what you're looking at for long-term projections?
We're looking at last year it was $100,000. So basically you have to look at the turf as it's a carpet. There's actually no glue except for the sides. It's just sand and rubber, and then having it made to be put down. Last year we were looking between $100,000 and $150,000 to have that replaced. I don't know what that's going to be in 10 years. I'm earmarking in my head, or probably anywhere between $200,000 and $300,000. So the only loophole that I think that is kind of an issue, or a fail-safe, whatever you want to call it, for maintenance, is that the amount of use that we put on it, they're expecting actually to go 12 to 15 years. So that gets kind of tricky, just because the maintenance agreement stops at 10. So our goal is to be ready at 10 years to be able to replace the whole thing, so that whenever it happens, we can just do it. Could go longer, which is great, and we'll just leave that money separately, so it doesn't get touched.
So after just doing this now, we have like an estimated cost of what it might look like in 10 years to.
Yeah, so to be honest with you, I think, not that I wouldn't be honest, stupid saying, but the reality is that in 5 years, I'll have that conversation again with them. They're right out of Sabatis, actually, the people that do the maintenance. They're awesome. And like I said, we got all the equipment now, and it's here, and they trained us on it. So we should be okay. We just finished putting in a gate, I'm sure you saw down there, so we'll be able to keep people off there, and we have solar lights up 24/7 to try to keep people out of there too, as far as security measures go. But anything that does happen, we can have replaced.
Okay, and then also, when you were talking about the retaining wall, that's on
Sure.
the hill, you were talking about the ski hill, and then it flattens out, and then it goes down to the.
No, right where the track goes towards the bleachers is going to have to be pushed in another about 9 meters, as they say in track. It's about 9 yards. And then they'll have to put that wall all the way down the front of the hill. And depending on how this settles first, they may have to put something behind to hold on the back over by the scoreboard, 202 end.
And I did have one other question
Sure.
from a resident, just as far as your role, are you serving as a community member on the Winthrop Athletic Complex or a representative of the school?
School. Yeah, I guess you could say both, but I'm the maintenance guy, the athletic guy, and I live on Green Street, so I guess both. But as my role goes, I see it as the school first.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Shannon, I have one more. Joel, thanks again for coming. And then can I just get moving forward? So right now, the committee has the finances, right? And you have different accounts that you're putting away to, like, say, for the
So
replacement.
just to answer that real quick, because it may help with so everything comes to the school, and we have a memorandum of understanding that the money that's made from that field goes to a certain account that just goes towards maintenance for that account. It doesn't get held over or lost in a rollover. That's what happened with pay to play years ago.
Yeah,
It was
right.
a big
And
sticking point for us.
Okay. And then for phase 2,
Yep.
is that fundraising account with the committee or is the school?
Yes.
Okay, so still
It's
separate.
separate. So anything that is a revenue, basically, I would say it this way, would go from the field itself, that as it exists now, goes into a school account.
Okay.
That's designed just for maintenance, and then we'll get the money separately in an outside account.
Okay. I would just say, or, if, on the record, if you guys run into any issues, just, let us know ahead.
Yeah.
Then, because on the finance committee, we'll see any payouts or changes and we have to sign off on them. So I was
Sure,
just gonna say,
absolutely,
just
absolutely.
let us know. And then, if we need to do or help or whatever, just let us know. Yeah.
Yeah, and our long-term plan is to really get to that 10-year anniversary and do it again. And hopefully that happens. So that gives, on the record, please, 20 years for the town and the school to figure out how to pay for it after that. So, which I think is more than fair. So, any other questions?
Thank you
Okay,
very
great.
much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time, guys.
Really
Thank you,
appreciate it.
Bill.
All right. All right, so we will move on to other business and public comment. Is there anybody from the audience or online that would like to come up to the podium and speak? All right, with that then, we will move on to, go ahead.
I have a couple things. See if there's any.
Yep. Moving on to the town manager's report.
Yeah, I'm always sharing my time.
Not this area, but I have a couple of things too.
Okay, so just some updates of a few things. We did receive notification, I think it was late Friday, that we did get our $50,000 grant for the Community Resilience Program that will be applied to the fire department heat pump. And Mike Ketchens and I have been working together to advance the entire heat pump project, and been in touch with our banker who's given us some guidance on that as well. So that's good. I really appreciate, Mike has been a terrific partner in this project. In case you didn't read your emails last week, but we received notification both from Senator Collins and Senator King's office that they have advanced our request for about $1.1 million to the Appropriations Committee in order to help offset about 55% of the cost of the radio communications upgrade. I'm very encouraged by that because I think I may have mentioned before that Senator Collins chairs the Appropriations Committee. And so if it's one of her projects, it's got a good prospect of gaining funding. So that's very, very encouraging. Right now, we are working on 2 grant applications, both of which are due July 15th to the state. One is with the Department of Transportation for sidewalk improvements. And lest we get anyone's hopes up, our sidewalks are so bad that the first step is that there's got to be some engineering of those done. And because they don't meet ADA compliance, we're going to have to acquire some easements along Main Street in order to widen those. So, and when I say we, that's something that the DOT funds, but we're applying for funding for that initial work. Also, we're applying for a grant to replace the boat ramp at Maranacook Lake because those, believe it or not, those do have a lifespan, and ours is at the end of its lifespan. So we're working on those. Today, we issued an RFP for, don't take my pen. Today, we issued an RFP for digitization of our tax map. I think I told you folks not too long ago that our tax maps are all at least 10 plus years old. And the only way that they've been updated is someone has drawn lines where properties have been subdivided. So we're getting that updated and we're going to digitize it and put it on our website. And it will also be connected to GIS information as well. So we put out the RFP for that. Oh, one of the things I failed to mention about the congressionally directed spending is I was talking with a community development director from another community in Southern Maine today, and they actually applied for those same funds that we applied for the radio communications upgrade in order to expand their wastewater system. So that's something to sort of keep in mind in subsequent years. Let's see. Okay, so just wanted to double check. We're moving into the summer season. Do we want to continue to have 2 meetings a month in July and August, or do we want to try during that summer? I know people are traveling on vacations, so forth. And so what's the pleasure of the council?
What's the load look like?
I think now that we're past the budget, I think we could probably get away with one meeting each in July and August.
Feeling is that, you know, just getting that form may be tough. I think we just try to get it to one for those couple of summer months.
Okay. All right.
I think we signed up for this, and I'm actually the one that started the 2 meetings, and I'd hate for us to get behind by dropping the second meeting. You know, they can be half an hour, who knows, they could be an hour, but I think we need to continue with the practice.
I don't think, as long as we can get done the stuff that we need to get done in one meeting, even if that one meeting goes a little longer, I'd be on board with that.
We can always keep it on the ability to then say, oh, we didn't get enough, there's a lot, let's go ahead and with a second meeting, we'll have plenty of time to announce it.
How long do we have to post publicly that we're having a meeting?
So we always post on a Thursday before a Monday meeting. So, you know, the public would have 4 or 5 days of notice,
Depending on issues?
depending upon the issues.
I think that that would be up to the discretion of you to inform Shannon that we need to have a meeting for urgency or to expedite. I mean, we were inundated with a lot more information and applications, transient vendor license, things like that that need to be acted on.
Yeah.
During my tenure, we agreed, you and I, that we would post on Wednesdays because we had a Tuesday morning meeting. When did that change?
Well, we've been
And on
posting.
whose authority?
Well, that wasn't my question. My question was, when do we have to notify the public? And he said Thursday before a Monday meeting. If he opted to have a meeting, then it would forego the Wednesday and just make the Thursday announcement. We can all attend.
I just, you know, I like the idea of getting that agenda out there on Wednesdays so that the public have more time to look at it and peruse it.
Chair and
So, okay. So I think we have our marching orders. We'll set a date for July and August, and, you know, maybe we'll delay it a week and have it on the second week as opposed to the first week. And that gives us, yeah. Okay. So here's something that we've discussed, as a staff
To clarify,
recently.
now the meetings are going to go out, notice are going to go out on Thursdays?
Andy,
Yes or
on,
no? Just simple.
I'm answering your question. On Wednesday, I will have been here an entire year. I think throughout that entire year, we've always posted the agendas on Thursdays. And, we are providing an awful lot of information in the agenda packets, and that takes time in order to develop, along with doing things like applying for grants and so forth. So, and, you know, you folks are aware of some of the other issues that we've been dealing with lately. And so,
earlier, there'd be updated more, and then more.
yeah, well, and I think that we do a pretty decent job of letting the public know of what's going on the agenda. I mean, as soon as we post it, not only do we have it on our website with the email alerts, but we also put it on our Facebook page. And so, you know, we do our dead level best. You know, one of the unfortunate things is that the community advertiser went under, and I always thought that was a terrific tool for letting folks know what was going on, but c'est la vie.
I think it's always been a goal to get it out on Wednesdays, but given the busyness with budget and a lot of other challenges and issues and things that we've been dealing with, then I think that it's reasonable to sit there and see it go out on Thursdays. Yeah, so it's a goal, and if we get it out on Thursday, then so be it.
So here's a discussion that we've been having as a staff, and it reflects a growing trend in municipal government in Maine. And that is a 4-day work week in the town office. And well, before we start shaking our heads, no, hear me out. Hear me out. So let's take Jim Steele, for instance. So I'm going to assume that Jim is expected to report to work by 8 a.m. each day. And he probably works until 5 p.m. each day. And maybe he doesn't work in Winthrop. And so that makes it awful difficult for him to get to the town office. So if we were to adopt a schedule of 410s, then I think it will serve citizens well in that they'll have an opportunity to either stop by the town office before, on their way to work in order to conduct whatever business that they have. And they would have the same opportunity whenever they left work on their way home, pop by the town office. It is something that, as I said, a lot of communities have adopted, and it does seem to be a morale booster for the staff. It's not unheard of within our own organization. I mean, well, once daylight savings time takes effect, our public works department works 410s.
I guess one question is, what do we do when our citizens really start complaining because they can't get a hold of anybody on a Monday or a Friday or whatever day it is we're skipping?
So it's like everything else, Andy. I mean, we'll do our dead level best to put information out to let folks know that these are our new operating hours. And again, you know, if you work 8 to 5, it's pretty dadgum hard to make it to the town office in order to register your car or your dog or get a fishing license or pay your taxes or.
How does? Completely agree with that piece of it, being open, extended hours. However, the only way that I would be on board with that is if we split the staff on the slow days. Maybe it's slower on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. Have half the staff come in so that way the doors can stay open to the public, particularly in the town office.
I concur.
Most of the public is doing their business right through the clerk's office. And I think it's important that they stay open 5 days a week.
So I would.
3 of them.
I like the extended hours. However, my other concern would be weeks that we have either a holiday or we have like a snow day on unanticipated weather, then you're really kind of cutting the residents a day short on their week.
Okay. So this.
The other thing is, and I've had experience with this, you get less productivity out of 40 hours at 410s than you do out of 40 hours at 5/8. People get tired, they get less productivity. And particularly if you do that with the outside maintenance people, you're taking an extra safety risk.
Well, our public works employees are already working 410s during daylight savings time. So,
What is the staff?
For that a little bit with weather and things too.
say that again.
So we've also kind of flexed a little bit with that with weather, have we not?
Well, I think as Counselor Weymouth might attest to, I think we've been more prone to open later as opposed to shutting down for the entire day. And, you know, we try to do that, being mindful of the fact that citizens need our services.
And I don't think it would be unreasonable to say, you know, in the winter time, if you had a closure, then, you know, it might, because I'm sure that these, you know, our employees are hourly, right? Most of them clerks, are they hourly, not salaried?
Yes.
Yeah, so they probably want their hours, I would assume, and say Monday's a snow day and then Friday's the day off, then we shift it and let people know. I think that would be a reasonable approach. And I'm assuming you've run this by them and they're on board with this?
They're the ones who have
Okay.
lobbied me.
Okay.
In order
I don't have a problem with that at all.
to propose this.
Because I've always had a problem getting to the town office before
Okay.
it closes.
What would be your proposed day off?
Friday.
They're gonna work Thursday through Sunday?
Okay.
But my question too is that I gotta chew on it, Anthony. If you're looking for an answer tonight, you're not gonna get.
No.
one from me.
So this is the start of a discussion. We're not looking for a
Sure.
decision.
I think my question to you too is I know they hold up new registrations at certain times too. Would that be extended?
What do you mean new
Well, if you're
registration?
registering a new vehicle, they don't do anything after a certain time, which I don't blame them because I know it takes. a
Oh,
little
yeah,
more
it takes more time. Yeah.
Correct. So it puts them past.
With the what?
State be available after 5 o'clock.
Oh, yeah. I mean, all of that's computerized. I mean, they're not.
Had to call in your motor vehicles in order to get.
Yeah, well, I don't know about that. I don't know what the BMV's hours are. But, okay, so here's 2 other food for thought as you chew on this, Jim. is maybe we could split the baby by working 9 days, Monday, or 9 hours, Monday through Thursday, and then working Friday mornings and having Friday afternoons off.
I would agree something like that, but I really think that Roy's idea about, having a couple of nights where we're open after working hours is a good thing.
Well, that would be the case. If we worked 9 hours, we'd be open probably from 7 to 6.
Right, but
Now,
the
a lot
incentive
of
to
people have a
staying,
1-hour commute, I mean, I just think,
the incentive to staying open late, then you're not going
e-
to have staff stay late and then not
Even-
have,
oh,
time
even one night a week, I hate to do one staff person in the office alone. But
Yeah,
one
well-
night a week till 8,
Yeah, we would never have anyone in the office.
right.
Do we have some input from the audience? I'd love to.
Miranda, why don't you come up to the mic?
So
all right, Monday
Miranda
holidays.
Ketchen is asking about Monday holidays. What about Monday holidays?
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it'd be a short week. So, and again, so this is not a novel idea among Maine municipalities.
Right, go ahead.
Come on up.
Person. Steve McDermott, for the record. I think that I support ideas that we can increase morale and increase access. And there's probably about 5 different models that could make a lot of sense, whether it's splitting staff. Some staff work Monday through Thursday, other staff work Tuesday through Friday, so that you have late hours every day and achieving the goal of increasing morale. And then you can work with staff to flip-flop if they want that. So sometimes they have a Monday day, sometimes they have a Friday day, or you do it around those Monday holidays. So the same person doesn't always get that benefit of a 4-day weekend. But it sounds like there's probably interest in staying open later. There's probably interest in supporting municipal staff. And there's probably 8 different ways to do that achieve all of the goals that you're looking for without losing some goals. Far be it for me to make a suggestion to you, but maybe Anthony could come back with some different models and list the pros and cons, or get some feedback from you about what you wouldn't want to see if this model went forward, rather than deciding it now. I know the city of Bath has a really kind of forward-thinking model where they are open. I think it's a 4-day work week, and it's closed for an hour every day at lunch. So staff really have some time to get in. I think what we'll be seeing is continued challenges with municipal staffing that everybody's facing across the state.
Describe forward thinking. As I consider forward thinking as the staff being available, the staff getting the as much done as we can out of the staff. What is your idea of forward thinking?
So I totally agree with you that we want everybody doing 100% of their job when possible, right? Acknowledging that we all have better days than others, depending on what's been going on. But I do think that when we think about forward thinking, it's what are the systems that we can put in place to have people want to show up and do 100% for the community every day. And some of that is through a paycheck, right? I go to work to get paid.
There's paycheck, there's benefits, there's job security, all the elements are there that have been there since the beginning of time.
And I think that these types of work schedules are what differentiate one community from another. And if somebody is a town clerk who's highly recognized, I think the town clerk for Lewiston sits on the international board of town or municipal clerks, some acronym I don't know. But if we want high quality staff, we will have to offer them competitive pay, great benefits, a good working environment. And this just goes to increase these types of scheduling patterns just go to increase what you're selling as your benefits package.
And so to answer your question, Roy, I might add too that being forward thinking means just being like open to the idea. And so I think a legit way to approach this is we come up with something and then we try it for 6 months and see if it works for us. And if it doesn't work for us, then we try something else.
I agree with Stephen's suggestion is, why don't you come up with some ideas and
Okay.
I think there's
one of
about
the-
8 different ways to slice the pie that would be encouraging to people, but our town office is a public service paid for by our constituents. To make it more accessible is great, but to take a day off and just work 4 days, I don't think that would go over real well with a lot of people. But I'm willing to look at different ideas and plans. I don't like the idea of the town office closing for a day because half the people don't read the emails or look at the FaceTime or Facebook, whatever it is, and they're left out in the dark.
Another thought, and I agree with you, Bruce. Another thought would be to get, say, one night a week for a couple hours and pay for that with comp time, prearranged comp time, so that a person doesn't build it up and disappear for a couple of weeks. But, you could say, you're going to work 2 hours every Wednesday night. The town office is going to be open. Someone will have to take comp time to do that. And then eventually they'll get themselves a week off, something like that.
You're talking all staff.
Just another idea. And if you do 8 pieces of pie, I want 7.
So two things. We're talking about the town office, and I understand it's not completely fair, but the library is open six days a week, and I think people like that. And I don't know that there's much of an appetite to change that. And so mainly we're talking, and the police department never closes, and so mainly we're talking about the town office.
Okay, that was my question.
Yeah,
The whole-
and to Andy's point, we do need to keep in mind, we do have contractual obligations where someone, if they work over 40 hours a week and they're a non-exempt employee, then they get to choose whether they take comp time or get paid overtime. So
Thought that we had addressed the time.
that was for exempt employees, not non-exempt employees.
I think it's essential that people be, in all areas, be available 5 days a week. I mean, for example, who was here earlier, there's, construction companies, because they're not municipal companies, they have to work 5 days a week in most cases. And if they're scheduled, if they have a septic system open waiting for inspection, it's important that we're available.
I agree with you, Roy. But I think some contractors think they can call us up and say, hey, come inspect it right now. And I think, I don't show up at my dentist and go, hey, fix this cavity for me right now. You got to make an appointment. And that's something I've tried to stress to the code enforcement officer is let's formalize this a little bit so that someone says, hey, I'm going to have this project done on such and such date. Will you be able to inspect it on that date, as opposed just to calling and expecting someone to show up within the hour?
So I would just say, let us know different options. I'm not opposed to it, looking at different options and then who it applies to within the town
I
office.
think that there's certain considerations as well with the clerk's office, just because I do understand that there can't be the deputy clerk there without the clerk, or there's certain things, they both have to be present to be able to do all the functions that are necessary.
Yeah, well, you don't necessarily have to have the town clerk there, but you want 2 clerks there at any one time.
Okay. And then, I'm not opposed to even doing late starts and early dismissals, if they waiver a little bit.
Yeah, you could do it just one employee day, a late start in order to. There's lots of ways.
Okay, well, we'll come up
But
with
if
some.
you did that,
Let them come back with some.
As I said,
if you did that, you'd have one employee working late, and we can't do that.
I think
You
the
need
whole
2
thing helps you enhance your package to be able to sell people, to get better quality people if you need them.
Yeah.
That are more interested in applying and working than, having some flexibility, since we're kind of staunch with dollars.
Yeah, well, none of them are here, but I'm going to put the onus on the people who proposed this to come up with some options.
Okay, well, that'll be great.
Good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate the input from Steve and Miranda and so Aaron.
Yeah. So anyway, so that thus ends the town manager's report.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Anthony.
All right, so that includes the public portion of our meeting. Thank you all.
I have.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I guess they weren't answered,
Amen.
Roy, right?
Just trying to-
All right. Property tax properties. Where do we stand with that? Can you give us an update?
So let's see. Of the ones that we have sent the notices out, it's still within that 90-day window. And I think that ends sometime in mid to late July.
Okay.
And so at that point, we'll be able to put those on the market through our real estate broker.
Do they have the ability to come in and pay during that 90 days?
Yes,
Come in and pay in full up to.
You getting any feedback with that?
very little. Very little. On June the 10th, we are scheduled to go to court on one of the foreclosed properties that is within our, we legally own it now. It's just a matter of encouraging the resident to move out. So we have a court hearing on that on June the 10th.
Have you heard any information back on the Anabesco building?
Nope,
Nothing on that?
no. But those consultants, Roy, are notoriously slow to respond, so.
That's a federal contractor.
What, yes, it is. And, but they are coming here, I think it's in late June, in order to do their annual inspection out there and talk to some of the folks who have not yet capped their wells. And so, so that'll be a good opportunity to hit them up again.
Corner them and get them to
Yeah,
get some information.
Let me know, I'll come down.
I understand the feds can get pretty complicated, but I still, if we have a clean deed, no incumbencies on it, I don't know why we need to check with the.
Well, because I don't think anyone here knows what the terms of our taking possession of that building was. And if part of the terms were, we're not to lease it out
Do we have a deed?
for any commercial,
That'd be my concern, is exactly what you're saying.
yeah,
Do we have a deed?
not that I've seen.
That's a different story.
Gotta have a deed somewhere, I would imagine.
And there may be, but we're just trying to,
Look up in the register of deeds.
we're just trying to do our due diligence,
Yeah.
just to see
Get it, but
if there's,
it would be a big help if we could do some local research and see
Andy.
if there's a deed.
okay, let me finish
Please.
as I'm talking, please. So we're just trying to do our due diligence to see if there is some sort of agreement that was struck between the town and the federal government whenever we took possession of that would preclude us from considering leasing space in that.
And I've
So-
also asked about the solar arrays potential,
Yeah,
which was something that had been a previous council had looked, and again, surprised they didn't hear back from them. So
yeah.
One other thing I know I've asked a couple of times in the past, and it's been, we've got some, but update on what the maintenance crew has been doing, road maintenance crew.
Okay, we were discussing road maintenance today with the Public Works Director and Utility District and our paving contractor. So we're going to have a meeting about that coming up
About
shortly.
Brushing on the side. One concern I would have is cutting brush on the side of the roads. It's been,
Okay, let's
Going in
talk about that offline.
well, I
Okay,
idea what's going on. Process is.
yeah, we do have a lot of broken tree limbs.
While we're on this point of Public Works, I do want to say thank you to Public Works and the fire department for getting the flags up and the one down on Norcross Point
Oh,
for
good.
Memorial Day weekend.
well, and the credit also goes to the Lions Club, which, Steve Kennedy coordinated with the Lions Club to finally make that happen.
Good.
That was great. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Ben?
Just want to say, I love this. This looks very nice compared to what we used to look at.
Well, there's
I
still,
know that.
there's
I know
still
they-
some
they'll
work to
probably
do.
that. They'll fix that up, but to look at the floor and not see wires everywhere is amazing. So in there for the first meeting, I'm impressed. I like being able to see the audience and who's online without spinning my head backwards. So
Well, they're sending an engineer tomorrow. There's been some problems with this
They,
controls
it's
connecting to the
the other-
system.
the other-
Just a general question to the audience, Barb Brochus and Kelly D. I mean, do you like the quality of the audio that you're looking at as opposed to the Zoom?
Yeah,
If you
and-
want to chime in, I'd appreciate it if
working.
you're still listening.
Yeah, it actually probably sounds better out there because these microphones are connected with those speakers. So
So
From that mic.
so I like what we've done, but I have a couple questions. One is why, or do we have extension cords?
Well, because we have to have an electrician come in and,
That wasn't part of their contract.
Andy, please let me finish when I, so no, it was not part of the contract. And it was something that I thought that they were going to take care of and they thought we were taking care of. And so we've contacted an electrician. And so they're going to come in and hardwire electricity to this piece of equipment, that piece of equipment, and that piece of
Fair
equipment.
enough.
Well, it's nice when you move to the state of Maine, you officially get a green tarp and an orange extension cord. So, I mean, I'm glad that we didn't incur any public funding.
All right, if that concludes it.
Yes.
All right.
Absolutely.
Now I'll say thank you to everybody for sticking around and being in attendance for this meeting. We appreciate all the hard work and input.
Motion to adjourn?
No.
No, 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 no.